Hello, everyone. Ryan Lawle and I were talking earlier this morning, and we were getting teary-eyed and nostalgic, reminiscing about previous conferences where those of us thinking about out-of-home plus mobile would secretly meet in a bar late at night. And then later conferences, there'd be a kind of darkened panel in a satellite room in a different hotel. So we're incredibly excited that finally there's a mobile panel on the main stage. A long time coming, and I think a real measure of where we're moving. The past 2 days have been really cool. We've heard about mobile, we've heard about the Internet of Things, we've heard about big data, Lil Wayne today, and the panel, the really spectacular panelists we have today are going to unlock the potential. We're going to have a big picture, strategic view of where we are now as an industry, as well as the steps we need to put in place to ensure that mobile continues to be an integral driving force in the growth and evolution of out-of-home. So with that, please join me in welcoming the panelists. So to begin with, we have Tricia Nichols, who is global, she's got a difficult job title, so I'm going to read it here. She's Global Lead Consumer Engagements, Brand Partnerships at Gap. Thank you, Tricia. I knew I'd mess up her job title. Followed by Josh Kruter, Clear Channel Outdoor America Vice President. I've messed this one up as well, of Digital Product. Hi, Josh. Rachel Pasqua, Head of Mobile, MEC, North America. And Nancy Ryan, Media Director, Allstate Insurance Company. So let's get straight into this. Thank you all for being panelists. Really spectacular group of people. I thought I might ask the awkward question to begin with. We just heard from Greg about the spectacular growth of mobile. So Rachel, should everyone in this room be worried?
Worried? No, on the contrary. Everyone in this room should be incredibly excited about the possibilities that mobile brings to out-of-home. What else would enable us to take what was previously a fairly static one-way medium and turn it into an actual two-way conversation? No, I'm excited.
Josh, you excited as well?
I absolutely am. I think, Greg, you hit on a great point in terms of proximity. And we know about proximity, and we have screens, large and very large, and how we can connect that to the small screen and follow people through time to ultimately do what we want to accomplish, which is work with our brand partners and our agency partners to tell stories and make connections.
So I think there is a lot of really kind of spectacular things that we can do when we do add mobile to out-of-home. But Nancy, let's talk to you for a second. You have a very complex business. You are a big advocate of both mobile and out-of-home. Don't currently pair them together. So can you give us some insight into why you think as a standalone medium out-of-home really works?
Let me start by saying why we don't pair the two of them together. As you know, I'm in the insurance business, and it is our policy not to encourage people to interact with mobile while they're driving, so I'll just say that to start with. But as a standalone medium, the out-of-home industry works very well for us, really for three reasons, I think. One is the medium aligns well with our products. We're trying to reach people who are on the road, whether it be in their car or on their motorcycle. The local nature of out-of-home, we are a network of over 10,000 Allstate agents out there, and being in their community is, a huge priority for us. And third, while out-of-home is a broad medium, it's also very targeted. And I can give a couple examples of how we've used it where it is so targeted. Our products that we sell for motorcycle insurance, boat insurance, we, a few years ago, were able to partner with a couple companies in the out-of-home industry where we actually created signage very, targeted to a motorcycle owner in motorcycle dealerships. And we did the same thing in marinas around in some of the coastal areas where, you can't get more targeted than that. 2 years ago, we launched a new product in Chicago called DriveWise. And it's one of those telematic plug-in devices where you put it in your car, we track your driving habits, and ultimately we offer better drivers a better price, right? So we were trying to get to people who would be most receptive to this product. And the transit system in Chicago and the transit advertising it offered was absolutely spot on. And that was the backbone of the entire plan, was a transit opportunity where we were reaching people who we knew owned cars. It was commuters from the suburbs. but they didn't drive a lot. And that's what this product was targeted to, people who don't drive a whole lot, that probably have a good driving record. We blanketed the city, we blanketed the platforms, everything, and it really enabled us to get the right message into the right people without a lot of waste. So I could go on and on. We have a million examples, but out of home has really worked well for us over the years.
And I think, you know, later on, let's get into that challenge of the motor car experience and mobile with new technologies such as beacons, which we're going to touch on later. Tricia, your business is different. You have married out-of-home and mobile together. First company, I think, maybe even the world to do geofencing and out-of-home. Could you talk about some of those executions as well as the process you go through when you think about how to connect different advertising media platforms?
Sure. You know, being on a brand like Gap, it's one of the first things you think about is we're not necessarily looking for awareness. So if we use that as our main goal, we've already maybe left something on the table. And the other thing we really think about is we try to move away from channel planning, from the flowchart model, that way of thinking. So we actually try to do what I would call like intent marketing. And intent marketing means you define your intent, and that's every channel has an opportunity to play a role, probably together. Usually it's a dual strategy. So for us, something like out of home is great for consideration, and consideration is my goal. I don't have an awareness problem, but I want people to consider Gap. And if they consider Gap and they consider our brand, they are more likely to purchase later, up to 3 times. So that's huge. So if out of home is driving consideration, mobile's taking it all the way home. And those are things we think about. So we do look at the consumer journey. We try to get away from the words channel planning. We don't sit around saying we need a mobile strategy and we need an out-of-home strategy. I need a consumer strategy, and that's the way we think. And you know, I'm lucky our model is that we do want people to look at something, consider it, and then ultimately they're going to turn to this device to learn more or get something of value, which is something you mentioned Gap has done, you know, the first in a couple areas. We do try to be first. We love that. But somebody's always got this in their hand, and I think for us, we recognize that if we give them something of value and we can do it immediately while they're also seeing our you know, campaign in other areas, they're just extremely valuable to us.
And we've heard about the industry project to establish an ROI metric for out-of-home. But in a very real sense, we have experience with Gap and perhaps some other examples as well of driving purchase through couponing, through mobile and out-of-home together. Can you talk about that for?
Yeah, you mentioned the geofencing. You know, I'm lucky we have a really good partner with OMA and D-Theory, and they've helped us get to this position of being a brand that will test things. We actually use a lot of the tests that we do. We steal that data and we put it into a model that we have, and so many brands are still using, you know, marketing mix analytics, which is great, but we've built a model on top of that to bring in all the qualitative factors that we learn from some of the tests. So the geofencing stuff that we do that was phenomenal, even small things like Euclid we've tested, that gives me so much information about how windows are performing. And that's another trick with brands is, somebody said it brilliantly earlier, marketing is only a piece of the picture, advertising is even smaller piece of that picture. But when you're at a brand, you're actually weighing the investment against other things that are competing. So for us, windows and stores take up money. They actually take a large portion of our marketing budget, and that competes directly with out-of-home and mobile, if you look at it that way. So we have to learn as much as we can about the power of even those channels to supplement and figure out how mobile could work harder, how out-of-home can work harder. So data is hugely important. A little test can go a far way in that, and I think that we would want partners in that, you know, bring people to the table that are willing to share their data back with us.
Great. Greg?
Yeah, you know, I have a thought on the ROI thing too, and I love your point about that mobile is not just advertising, that it's a marketing channel, and it's actually a pretty substantive point of view because I think it changes the dialogue. But, you know, mobile has had to solve this problem, right? Because marketing mix modeling, you know, you had Jim Spaeth and others here who I know very well and some of the work he's done. Marketing mix modeling doesn't measure mobile. You can't. It's too small, 2 years old. It's just of no value. So, and this is the role that a trade group would play. We've actually now gone out, raised a couple $1 million to do a series of cross-media analysis. It is advertising. I'm trying to work market into it, but it is advertising oriented, so that we can figure out what is mobile's ROI relative to the other options for major brands. As I mentioned here, in fact, I've never mentioned publicly that the 2 data points are 11% and 15% are the optimized levels based on all these modelings and analysis. So finally, and our expectation is that we will build a product so that you can go do your own studies over time. But we'll have 6 major marketers coming out with results over the course of this year around that. But it's hard work, and the tools don't exist. Somebody's got to create them.
Let's continue the big data conversation. So these 2 days, we've heard it lots of times. At the ANA's Masters of Marketing, we heard that the 2 big drivers for brands were innovation and big data. Nancy, can you talk about how data plays a role in Allstate?
Well, data plays a role in everything we do at Allstate, from measuring media to trying to speak one-on-one to our customers, to understanding who our customers are, like I alluded to earlier, their driving habits, and taking it down to the granular level of customer 1 could be very different from customer 2, and we want to be able to talk independently to each of those customers, or even new customers, based on what we know about them. I think in the future, we're moving quickly towards this whole area of personalization, one-on-one communication, and I don't think it's unique to the insurance business at all. I think it applies probably to every other client that's in this room and every other marketer out there. So it's a challenge. It's something we're trying to wrap ourselves around. I was in a meeting the other day, and someone came in and said, pretty soon C-suites are going to see chief digital officers up there if they don't already have them next to the CMO and whoever else is up there. But it's going to be a need, I think, in the future.
Rachel, can you talk about data in the agency world?
Sure. Well, I think to Greg's point before, I mean, mobile is already it's already clearly an activation channel for out of home. QR codes, SMS integrated into digital out of home and static out of home. But I think the real holy grail of mobile meets digital out of home and traditional out of home is the application of data into that user experience to create a more personalized message. But I think there are a lot of stumbling blocks there. There are privacy questions. Like if you're going to personalize an out-of-home display, how personal can you get? How much will people really tolerate? What's their appetite for personalization when it's a big public palette like that? Then there's obviously all of the tracking issues. There's so much fragmentation in tracking across screens, because really, I think as we were all talking about this yesterday, I mean, out-of-home is really it's just another screen now. I mean, not just another screen, it's a powerful other screen. But there are really no benchmarks right now for what that user experience should be based on data.
To your point, I mean, mobile's obviously incredibly powerful because of what it can tell you about audience and how you can understand about how an audience moves through space and time can be mapped back to the kind of inventory we have in out of home to make sure that we're building the right networks of opportunity to reach the right audiences at the right time. And certainly to your point, Rachel, about things we were talking about yesterday in terms of even beacons as a route towards customization, they're exciting to the out-of-home industry, or at least to someone like myself at Clear Channel, because they are a mobile moment that's triggered by an out-of-home location. But obviously, as you say, there are many challenges right now because there's privacy. It has to be generated by a specific app making a specific call. But those are opportunities that are going to be fun to work through with agencies and brands to get the right experiences activated.
So beacons may well be the next hot topic. And Greg, I don't know if you have a viewpoint on how close a beacon-type experience may bring the out-of-home world to the types of experiences enjoyed in mobile.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a panel in its own right, I think, or maybe a whole presentation. Yeah, I see how the panelists run their heads all. He did prep me with that question. I wasn't sure what I was going to say. It's kind of a big topic. The issue, in part, just for people who don't understand, is that beacons are this ability to sort of track, in particular in a store environment or in an event environment, what is really happening, usually connected through sort of Bluetooth in your phone, which most people generally have on. It's kind of easy to do. And if you don't know, I think ever since, who knows better than I do, ever since iPhone 4, they have this ability to connect with Apple's own beacon, if I understand that right. So, but you think about sort of how does that enhance the experience? How does that provide sort of more value to consumers and maybe navigating that in-store experience, keeping them from opting out? I didn't hear mentioned the whole issue with showrooming, which is a huge issue for retailers and could just transform their business. Just ask Best Buy what they think about that. So, it's I think it's one of the newer technologies that everybody's experimenting with and trying to figure out. It's, there's still a lot of work to be done, but, pretty positive inclined. I don't know, you have direct experience with it.
And the good news is there is a panel for that. 2:45 today, Sebastian, room 14, I think. So be there. Okay, Josh, you're relatively new at Clear Channel. Well, at least Clear Channel Outdoor.
The outdoor side, yep.
You know, we talk about mobile a lot. We've talked about it a lot these past 2 days. It still doesn't represent a ton of incremental revenue for the out-of-home industry, although clearly is leveraging new budgets. How seriously are media owners, out-of-home media owners, taking mobile?
So we're taking it incredibly seriously. I mean, as you think about the opportunity, it does go back to some things that I mentioned before we really are all about, which is engage, re-engage, and amplify messages. So a few examples from our recent past. I mean, Lady Gaga's team came to us to see how can we generate buzz for the most recent album she launched. And how we did that was we brought together all of her little monsters, about 70 million of her fans on Twitter, and used our digital screens in 13 countries to do the reveal on her album art simultaneously. And it was revealed, you know, Greg, much as the example you gave by, it was Twitter volume. And how did that bring that to life and the buzz it created? And that was about 700 million impressions that were generated, sparked by out of home. And similarly, work we did with Clorox, you think of a CPG brand and mobile and digital, and what would they do? But they were looking for buzz and engagement. So they went to digital screens in Las Vegas, and they went, well, what happens in Vegas should stay in Vegas. So they invited people to submit their moments that they wish to be bleached away, and created bleachable moments that came up on screen, and then they wiped away using the ability of digital and dynamic content to make that happen on boards. And as you see opportunities like that and other inquiries we're starting to get from the out-of-home teams at agencies and the digital teams at agencies and how they're thinking about bringing those together, it's an incredibly serious opportunity.
I wonder how many bleachable moments this conference generated.
I was preparing for my panel. I missed them all.
So this might be, as if by magic, the name of this conference is also the name of your new rollout in partnership with Blue Byte. You want to talk a little bit about
Well, and actually that we have worked with Blue Byte, but actually the Connect initiative is purely Clear Channel driven at this point. So we did announce an initiative called Connect a few weeks ago, and this is an opportunity to bring NFC, and obviously for our friends at Apple, QR, since they don't support NFC, to our pedestrian level inventory, whether digital or static, to create that engagement layer around campaigns. And that's going to reach roughly 175 million people around the world to create those engagements and the data that that can create by end of June, with more growth to come. And certainly, obviously, Dave, you mentioned we have worked with folks like Blue Byte as well. We've had brands like Samsung and Toyota who've worked with us really to embed NFC behind glass. So it was a great opportunity to take inventory that's not digital and, again, create that mobile and engagement layer to campaigns that we've executed.
And Trisha, I was going to ask from an out-of-home industry perspective, what can the out-of-home industry do in order to better align itself with mobile, in order to better align itself with the way that people currently sell mobile? And do networks like this help?
Certainly. I think, you know, on a real base layer, if you hear brands talk about, you mentioned a CPG brand, and everybody has a really different goal, and I think sometimes you have to push us beyond our obvious goal. So if you come in and what we don't want you to do is come in and sell us what you've got, because, you know, we need you to understand what we need, and we may not even be able to define that very well. So pushing us beyond the obvious goal. One thing I love to do is just take some of the media words off the table. You know, let's not talk in reach terms. Let's not talk about awareness. Like, what are we actually trying to do? And for us, you know, one of the goals that I set is brand bonding. And brand bonding is just simply multiple positive interactions with your brand. And multiple positive interactions with your brand can occur actually when they're out and about by way of out of home, or even a more personalized out of home. You know, we have a dual strategy with out of home. It's like the impact stuff and then the intimate stuff. And the intimate stuff is so critical for our business. And when you tie that to mobile, it's even more critical. But if an advertiser or brand isn't actually able to get there, you may have to get there for them. And that's going to come with a little bit of empathy, and also coming to us with, you know, trying to understand our goals beyond the obvious.
Great. And from an agency perspective, what can out-of-home people be doing to better communicate to you and sell the two mediums together?
Well, I mean, out of home is part of the media agency world. I think that there needs to be a better marriage of the of the planning and buying of out of home with the understanding of the interactive customer experience. Because we've been thinking about it as a fairly static medium for so long, and then thinking about it as a digital medium that's still pretty static in terms of interactivity. But now with these new layers of customization and personalization and multiple layers of interactivity, we need to start thinking about it as a real user experience. So I think on the agency side, there just needs to be a better marriage of the buying and planning side and the content strategy and user experience side.
Great. And to continue the vibe of the question, from your experience at the MMA and before that the IAB, what can our industry learn from your experiences in terms of the way that those two industries have been incredibly successful, growing share and redefining their position in the media mix?
Yeah, I don't know that I can add any more than sort of what I've shared already. I mean, that was kind of my position, was that there's a huge opportunity that presents itself to any of the local media to really transition themselves. But, I was a part of a newspaper, big newspaper industry launch called Cars.com under the umbrella of Classified Ventures. And that was late 90s. And, I would say that the newspaper industry really struggled. I mean, first off, they converted basically a $10 billion industry into a $500 million business, which is kind of always unfortunate. But, so those kinds of things, but the change is going to happen regardless, and so I watched them really struggle. Now again, it was the late 90s. That was a different time period. I don't find as much resistance to mobile like I saw in internet and digital before, but change is hard, and I respect that that's hard, and people have to see their own fortunes or futures as a result of their ability to adapt. So,
Can I edit my answer a little bit? I do want to add, I think, especially because a lot of what you talked about, many, many brands and agencies are in a position to want more, I hate to say the word data, but it is true. So as you even dip your toe in things, as you test small things, they're enormously high value in data. So I think that's one thing the industry can help us with is what can you help us learn that benefits us in ways you probably don't even realize. I judge out of home, I don't even call it digital anymore. We break it up to the things that it really is. It's influencers, it's social, it's mobile, and so on and so on. Quit kind of using the word digital even, but we are judging that investment against so many other things inside marketing. So against windows, against how many mannequins we're going to buy. So any data is so powerful. That's something I would say. Bring us what you got. Tell us what you know. Where did you learn it? What should we test? Even get just that little bit. So just wanted to add that.
Great. We think about mobile as this panacea for out of home, the fact that it can make it more relevant and dynamic. But let's invert that. What can out of home do for mobile? Josh?
Well, to go back to one of Greg's points, I mean, out of home can do a few things. One is it creates those rooted proximities around which campaigns can be built. And I know, obviously, Tricia, you've talked to great experiences you've had in that regard. It's also the fact that even though we carry this device around with us everywhere, frankly, how much can you cram onto that small screen? And instead, how can you unlock what's on that small screen and bring it to life with social exposure and dynamic content and create those large moments? And Nancy, as you mentioned before, I mean, there are, quite frankly, thousands of miles of roadway where the quote-unquote mobile consumer, frankly, should not be staring down at their device, and they need to be heads up. And we can make that connection and then follow up at the retarget.
Okay, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions, and in a kind of very defiant gesture of non-compliance, there's no Twitter hashtag, so we'll have to do it the old school way with a microphone and a mouth. But before we get to that bit, I wondered if each of you could just give a thought about what you want the take home for this room to be. So when we all get back to our offices, what's the one thing from each of you that we should be thinking about, we should be doing, in order to ensure that we can use mobile as a way of making our media more relevant and growing it?
We've been kind of nice, I think, in some regards to the outdoor industry, and we've suggested that it's complementary and it's, it can be access. I actually think that and this is just my intuitive sense, and, it's okay if I'm wrong, but I think outdoor is under more threat here by mobile than they realize. And that's not meant from the head of the trade group to cast, some sort of, well, I guess that was negative. But But I do think that there's something to have there. I really believe that there's something substantive, and what it forces all companies to do is to really think about what innovation. It's funny you mentioned innovation, and you mentioned also A&A Masters of Marketing. Stephen Quinn chose in his keynote presentation to say that his title is no longer Chief CMO; it should be Chief Innovation Officer. So he was throwing down the gauntlet, which is what they're asking the agencies and us as media partners to really do to help innovate. You both have said that too from the client side. So, they're demanding it. It's really how we respond, and it's not easy. So I'm sympathetic, but I think there's more risk than being acknowledged.
Just push us beyond the obvious goal. Don't talk to us about what's in your toolbox, but learn what's in ours and what we need. And then where you can, give us a little information, even if you got it, it's small and it's undefined. Sometimes just any insight helps. And then before I leave, there's one piece of data I do want to learn. I need to know how many tall people work at CBS Outdoor. It's just like enormous. Last night I was estimating, there's just a lot. So if somebody can give me that later, that'd be great.
Literally big
That's
data.
what I want to know from this community.
It's data. You want to know data.
That's data. That's the data.
Small sample size, though.
Right.
So I would say that though we're here talking about technology, and hey, as the digital product guy, I'm super excited about technology. Let's make sure that technology for technology's sake is never our goal. We still have to listen, we still have to collaborate, and we still have to make sure that we're working with brands and agencies to make the connections to the audiences they want to reach. And there are multiple different kinds of technologies, whether that's mobile, social, mapping, a number of things you could think of that enable us to do that. So let's always make sure we align them to actually solve the problems and deliver against the need.
For me, I'll say be mindful of the fact that that mobile slowly but surely is making consumers more mindful of the value of their personal data and of the quid pro quo of offering that up to brands. And I think that beacons are a really interesting little subsegment of the space to watch in that regard. People are getting used to the idea that, well, I'm going to walk into a Target, and through my Target application, they're going to start pushing me things that are of interest or relevance based on the aisle that I'm in. And that, a few years ago, there would have been a tremendous creep factor there, but more and more, and this morning, there was a lot of mention of the quantification of the self and the value and the management of personal data. As people are becoming more and more aware of that and of the value of that, I think you're going to see that consumers are more and more willing to give it up to you, the brand, in exchange for something of value, an offer, better content, directions, a better customer experience, a discount on their auto insurance. So keep an eye on that behavioral shift and think about how you can capitalize on it.
From the client side perspective, I ditto a lot of what you said. I would say innovation and testing and learning. Don't be shy about bringing any and all good ideas. Think about our business, and that's not unique to mobile or out of home. Start small. Don't be afraid to start small, because good ideas get funded in a big way over time.
Right.
I tell that to all vendor partners.
Fab. Okay, well, Jack, can we throw it over to you and to the audience, please?
Ask that questions be delayed until your session later on at 2:45, is that right?
Sebastian 14.
Sebastian 14 at 2:45.
The poshest of all meeting rooms.
We're trying to stay on schedule. This actually has been a really important conversation, and Greg, I applaud you for throwing that gauntlet down a bit on the competitive realities, because I do think that we can probably all agree up here that we cannot sit still as an industry and assume that technology is always going to be our friend, and the newspaper industry made that mistake. So I do think that's important. I would like to just ask the panel one kind of final closing comment, and that is looking back at your Penny's example, where there was such a clear tie-in between the mobile and the outdoor. Are there specific examples that any of you can add that haven't already been shared? I know you did, Nancy, but any other examples you can specifically share where you see mobile and out-of-home coming together?
I can contribute one. There's a great campaign for Peapod, where in transit environments where We're all working harder, longer. It's difficult to go shopping, find the time, and we created a series of posters whereby using smartphones, people could literally shop for their groceries from the poster, as well as in with a world of other groceries. And I think it's a great idea that understood the dwell time as well as the kind of anxieties of modern day life, and it was tremendously successful.
Yeah, Jack, we're about to launch 450 case studies that we've curated based on our Smarties Award winners, and I went through that to look for outdoor examples. We had another great one in there from, that was in there, the microloan one I showed you, but also Samsung did a really phenomenal one, I think using and demonstrating NFC and its ability then to download content, and obviously sort of suggesting they're moving towards actually purchasing, which is really phenomenal. And, you know, if somebody reaches out to me, I can get copies of that video for you.
Samsung, Toyota did similar as they were trying to reach millennials. So, and it was, you know, as you mentioned before, Nancy, on the ground at a shelter. So these are people who weren't driving, and they were a youth audience and wanted to make that connection through your ability to tap.
Great. Any other examples?
I have one more.
I would pick my own, sadly. So I think
That's
but
fair.
I do think we've tested a few things that have I just keep saying it, deliver enormous data that we need for other areas to actually put more money in out of home eventually, or more money in mobile. But I think we've done some things in Japan, we've done some things in the US and the UK. For us, the geofencing was one of the most amazing. And then what we've done with NFC in Japan, in a market where mobile phone is truly rules there. And so I think for us, being a retailer and someone who eventually we have to take advantage of shoppable content. I mean, television is becoming shoppable. Everything is shoppable. For us, it's the marriage of these two that that actually keep, you know, that alive for us. So
Great.
it's hard to just. I hope you give an example that's not your own. I feel
Nancy,
kind
No,
of
you
that's
said-
okay. Don't keep going. It's
No,
time's up.
please.
No,
Please.
actually, it wasn't as applicable as I thought, so
Okay.
you can pass.
All right, good. Thank you very much, guys. We really appreciate it. Great panel.